Just 4 days away, 96 hours away from the start of the Duke men's basketball season. On today's show, 4 lists of 4 regarding Duke men's hoops. It's a 4 for 4 on today's episode of Locked On Blue Devils.
Hi, everybody. Dick Vitale. Hey, make sure you listen, man, to Locked On Blue Devils with J.J. Jackson. He's awesome, baby.
You are Locked On Blue Devils, your daily podcast on the Duke Blue Devils. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody, and welcome into another episode of the Locked On Blue Devils podcast. My name is J.J. Jackson, the host of this fine show. Thank you for watching or listening to us here on this Thursday, November 2nd, 2023. I want to give a special shout out to all of our everydayers out there who make Locked On Blue Devils a part of their day each and every day. If you have not done so already, Locked On Blue Devils is available for free wherever you get your podcasts. Go ahead and subscribe to our podcast feed. Leave us a 5-star rating and review. Also watch us on YouTube each and every day, as you'll be able to subscribe to our channel, like the video, share it with your friends. Your support means so much to us. Follow us on Twitter at LO_Blue Devils, and I'm on Twitter at _JJ_Jackson_. Without further ado, joining me on today's show, a very good friend. He is Kevin Connelly, site expert for Ball Durham, and we've got a 4 for 4 due up for you on today's show. 4 lists of 4, including the 4 biggest games, the 4 most important players for Duke, 4 team stats to watch, and then 4 reasons why Locked On Blue Devils is awesome. And we'll tell you all about that throughout today's show. Kevin, it's good to see you, my friend. I'm really happy that we're so close to the official start of the real season for Duke basketball.
Yeah, we're here. It's been a long off season, been a lot of conversation, but now finally time to talk about basketball.
Yeah, I know we've got an exhibition game last night, but that's just not fun. That's not fun. This is the real thing coming up in 4 days, so let's talk all about it. Speaking of games, the real games that count, we've got the 4 biggest games to break down on today's show. We put our brains together, put together one full list for the people. So our 4 biggest games are as followed: at North Carolina, at Miami, the home game against Arizona, and a road game at Arkansas. Let's talk about them. That game at North Carolina, we remember how it ended a year ago. Tyrese Proctor walking off the court, waving goodbye in kind of a mocking fashion to sad Tar Heel fans. So amazing, but man, we know how intense these games can be.
Yeah, it's crazy. There's not much more that needs to be said other than it's Duke versus North Carolina. It's the first game that these two teams play this season. And in the schedule, it comes in a little bit of a tough stretch for Duke because earlier in the week, they're on the road at Virginia Tech. And we all know how Duke plays at Virginia Tech. Not very good. So you have a 2-game road trip. And it's still Duke and North Carolina. It doesn't matter how good either of these teams are. It doesn't matter if they're number 1 and number 2 are in the poll or number 362 and 363. It just does not matter. These two teams are going to go at it for a full 40 minutes, maybe even more, anytime they meet.
There was another ACC game that we've got here in our 4 biggest games at Miami for Duke. Duke got embarrassed there a season ago. They've got to find a way to bounce back this season. This is one of our biggest games of the season. Why?
Miami's a team that's had a ton of success in the ACC as of late under Jim Larinaga. They're expected to have more success in the league again this season. They're a top 15 team coming in to the season. Now, this game is not until mid to late February, but Miami was picked second in the ACC preseason poll right behind Duke. So it should be another big game. And again, you look at the schedule, it's the middle of a 3-game road trip. Before they're in Tallahassee to play Florida State, after they're in Winston-Salem to play Wake Forest on the road. So you have a 3-game road trip in the middle to end of February, and the Miami game comes smack dab in the middle of it. And who knows, it could have a lot of implications for ACC tournament seeding.
Well, now we've got 2 non-conference games for Duke, including a home game at Arizona. That's very close. Here we are 4 games away from the first game of the season, 8 days away from this game against Arizona. And it's so big because it's going to tell us a lot about this Duke team early in the season. And it's kind of the signal of a new era. We weren't necessarily known in the Mike Krzyzewski era for playing these kind of home-and-home premier non-conference matchups. That's going to be the case with games like Arizona on the docket for this Duke program. Why else is this such a big game for the Blue Devils?
Well, it's like you said, it's the first chance Duke has to show the country what they're all about. Obviously, you have that little tune-up game against Dartmouth. It can't call it a tune-up game. It's opening night. Like there's gonna be excitement. There's gonna be build-up for it. Like it's still opening night, but just later in the week, you get a top 15 team coming into Durham, making the trip across the country from Arizona to North Carolina, and all the preseason hype has been around Duke. 4 returning starters from last year, a preseason All-American and Kyle Filipowski, number 2 recruiting class in the country. Again, none of that matters anymore. Now you have to prove it on the court, and the first chance Duke really has to do it is against Arizona.
All right, and then one more game, a non-conference game at Arkansas. It's the first time ever that we've had this ACC and SEC challenge. We've seen Arkansas a couple of times in the NCAA postseason. Now here is a true road game in Fayetteville, Arkansas to take on the Razorbacks.
Yeah, a little bit of a history between these two teams, obviously. I don't know if any of your viewers got to see it, but the charity exhibition game was Purdue at Arkansas. And it was one of the most unbelievable environments I've ever seen for a game that doesn't matter. I mean, Bud Walton Arena was packed. It was sold out. It was jumping. It was like it was a conference game in January or February. It was incredible. And again, that was for an exhibition game. I can't even imagine what it's going to be like for Duke. I mean, you could make the argument it might be the best game in the arena's history, the biggest game in the arena's history. Now, you do have a team like Kentucky that's typically going down to play Arkansas in the SEC every single year. But when you get a program like Duke coming to your arena in the non-conference play, that's something special. And again, Arkansas is a very good team. They're going to be a top 15, top 20 team, maybe even a top 10 team by the time that game rolls around. So it's a huge game, and it's a chance for Duke to make a legitimate statement, right? We talked about the Arizona game, also Michigan State in that first week of the season. You get games under your belt, but going on the road in a true road hostile atmosphere, and you get to, if you win that game, you kind of just get to stamp your flag at center court, and the rest of the country sees it. That, all right, this team is legit. This team is for real. So certainly a big early test in a loaded November schedule for Duke.
4 days away from the first Duke basketball season, or first Duke basketball game of the season. We're JJ Redick days away with his number 4 jersey up there in the rafters. And we've got one of our lists completed. The 4 most important players for Duke. Who are they for this 2023-2024 season? We will tell you that and more on the other side of this break. Locked On Blue Devils here today is brought to you by our friends over at Prize Picks, the place to be. It is the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America. The easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. It's just you against the numbers. Instead of battling thousands of other players, including pros and sharks, you pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch all the winnings roll in. Prize Picks is the most fun that I've had, winning up to 25 times my money this football season, and now I can play during basketball season too. You select 2 or more players, again, more than or less than their projected stats, and place your entry. Now that basketball season is here, you can pick combo projections across both football and basketball from the Specials League. It's a league created specifically for the combo projections that includes 2 or more players from different sports or leagues. For example, you could have LeBron James plus Travis Kelce at a 10.5 combo of 3-point shots made plus receptions. All that and so much more over at Prize Picks. Go ahead and go to prizepicks.com/lockedoncollege and use code LockedOnCollege for a first deposit match up to $100. prizepicks.com/lockedoncollege and use code LockedOnCollege for a first deposit match up to $100. Moving forward here on today's episode of Locked On Blue Devils alongside Kevin Connelly, I'm JJ Jackson. All right, balldurham.com. You are the site expert for that website. Tell us a little bit about it, Kevin.
Well, we got everything you need in terms of Duke athletics. We got football, we got basketball, like we said, season 4 days away, exhibition coverage from last night. And then I don't know if your listeners heard, there was a pretty big announcement made on Monday. I don't know if anyone's heard about it or talked about it, but we have all the coverage of it. And there's also a pretty big announcement coming in a couple of days as well with another big-time recruit. And we're going to have coverage of that one too. So I don't know. I think some of your listeners maybe know what I'm talking about here.
Oh,
but
yeah,
you can get it
trust me.
at balldurham.com.
We have certainly pledged our allegiance throughout the week to the flag joining the Brotherhood. So that's awesome. And then to your point, here we are tonight. It's Thursday. Yes, we're 4 days away from the first game of the season, but a good luck shout out to Mike Elko and that Duke football team. They play Thursday night football tonight against Wake Forest. A lot of coverage over at Ball Durham that you want to be sure to go and check out. All right, so the 4 most important players for Duke. Let's be honest for a second, Kevin. They're all important. We love all these guys. We've talked about the rotation that Duke is going to have this season. So many of them being big-time impactful players. But we had to pick 4 of them. So this is our list that we put together. Again, if anyone wants to give us their 4 most important players, let us know down in the comments below. But here are our 4 most important players for this season. Tyrese Proctor, Kyle Filipowski, Mark Mitchell, TJ Power. That is the group of 4 that we put together. Let's start with the newcomer of them all, TJ Power.
Well, I think TJ Power's really interesting because you've heard so many great things about him going back to last summer when he really shot up the recruiting rankings at Peach Jam. 6'9", can really shoot it apparently. He's probably going to have to be used more in a role he might be a little uncomfortable in terms of rebounding and playing up front because, again, we're going to talk about it throughout this segment, how Duke could be a little bit thin up front this season. So I think that's where TJ Power becomes important, just in the way John Shire is going to utilize him because he's going to be used in a much different way than obviously your 2 guards and Caleb Foster and Jared McCain. And then I still think there's some question marks right now about Sean Stewart, but TJ Power, it feels like people are really high on, and it feels like for Duke to really have success, they're going to need to find a couple of extra bodies to contribute on a consistent basis. I think TJ Power could be one of them.
All right, Tyrese Proctor, another one of our most important players this season. Proctor coming back for his sophomore year, what should be his freshman season, remembering he reclassed a year early to join the team last season. He's coming back. He looks amazing. I think he will be a premier playmaker for the entire country, especially for the Duke basketball team. He's got a long time professional career out in front of him, but we're going to enjoy him wearing that number 5 Duke jersey for this season at least, and who knows what's beyond that. But I do think his outside shooting ability combined with setting his teammates up, playing good on-ball defense for a large portion of the season last year, Tyrese Proctor's on-ball defense was remarkable and a big reason why Duke was able to put a lot of defensive pressure on the opposition. Proctor, one of the most important players this season.
Yeah, I mean, he's your point guard, right? How often do you see teams win that don't have a legitimate point guard? You need that point guard who is an extra coach on the floor, who knows what he's doing, who never gets rushed, who stays under control, and that's what Tyrese Proctor has to be. And obviously, you highlighted it all. His offense, expecting to take another massive jump. His defense is already there. Needs to keep that at the same level. If you can have a guy at the top of your team who's able to distribute the ball and can defend, you're going to win a lot of games, and you're going to win a lot of games in March.
Tell me about Mark Mitchell. Mark Mitchell, one of our 4 most important players. He's coming back for his sophomore season as well.
Well, he's going to be the Swiss Army knife, right? He's a guy that could really play 2 through 5 if you need him to. Probably more comfortable playing 3 through 5. It feels like he's going to play a lot more this season in his natural position of the 4 at power forward. But he's the team's best. I would say he's the best defender. We just talked about Tyrese Proctor's defense. I still think Mark Mitchell is a better defender than Tyrese Proctor. He's long, he's lanky. When you look at the numbers last year, when he scored in double figures, Duke pretty much won every game. And you saw how out of sorts they were against Tennessee with him not on the floor. Again, he's not going to be the guy that gets the most headlines. He's not going to be the guy that puts up 25 points, but he's going to be the glue that holds this team together. And that's why I think Mark Mitchell is one of the 4 most important players on this roster.
And then finally, we've got Kyle Filipowski, the ACC preseason player of the year, Duke's best player on the team. Incredible freshman year. No player has started a Duke basketball career with more consecutive double-doubles than Kyle Filipowski did a season ago. When he played well last season, so did Duke. I think that's the case once again for him. It's a new hip flip, and I think he's eager to get the season going, and he will be very important for Duke's success once again this season.
Yeah, I mean, this is a guy who was playing all last year basically hurt, and look at the numbers he put up, not healthy, and we've seen it in bits and pieces already here in this preseason, how much more agile and athletic and explosive he looks on the floor. It's really incredible to see. And he's only going to get better. He's only going to get more comfortable in his new skin, in his new body, in his new hips. Like you said, preseason ACC Player of the Year, preseason first-team All-American. I think he has the potential to be a lottery pick if he improves his outside shot and shows he's improved defensively because he can move easier now on the court.
Still to come, the 4 team stats that we need to watch. That was our 4 most important players, talking about Tyrese Proctor, Kyle Filipowski, Mark Mitchell, and TJ Power. Let's talk about those important team stats to be on the lookout for this basketball season after our last time out here on today's show. Locked On Blue Devils here today is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. When you're talking about sports books, there's nobody else that you need to have in your life than our friends at FanDuel. Score early this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. That's $150 if your team wins. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action than now. This app is so easy to use. A wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and so much more. Thursday Night Football at the NFL level is back. We've got the Tennessee Titans back on the gridiron a little bit later tonight. So go check out all of that and more. FanDuel.com/lockedon to kick off the NFL season. FanDuel is an official partner of the NFL. Last few moments here on today's episode of Locked On Blue Devils alongside Kevin Connelly. I'm JJ Jackson. 2 more lists of 4. We've got the 5 team stats to watch and then a special Locked On Blue Devils list of 4 to close it out. So 4 team stats to watch here for Duke. Here's what we came up with. Talking about 3-point percentage, free throw attempts, rebounding, and assists for Duke. Let's start at the top. 3-point percentage for Duke basketball. Why is this important? Why do we need to watch this stat?
Well, they didn't shoot the ball well last year. That's number 1. And number 2, as John Shire says, he thinks he has a much better team shooting the ball this season, and they're going to take a lot more threes. So if you're going to take a lot more threes, you better make them at a good percentage, or then this could be a little bit strain on the eyes. So I think this team will be improved. Obviously, the 2 freshman guards certainly will help out, and Caleb Foster and Jared McCain. You're expecting Jeremy Roach to be around a high 30% three-point shooter, and then Tyrese Proctor. You want his shooting to be clean and crisp from the jump, unlike it was last season when he really struggled to acclimate himself to college basketball for the first couple of weeks of the season.
So that is 3-point percentage. Again, Duke has got a lot of good individual 3-point shooters together. Let's see if that can all come together and be one of the best. All right, what about free throw attempts? Why is this important? Why are we watching the stat this season?
Well, it's important because it shows you how the style of play is going to be maybe a little bit different offensively. There was a lot of questions on how all the pieces meshed together playing 2 big men in Kyle Filipowski and Derek Lively last year. And then really only 3 guys on the perimeter. Ball movement really wasn't that great. You want this team to be aggressive. If you're not shooting a 3-pointer, you want to get to the rim and try and get fouled. Get the other team in foul trouble, get to the free throw line. Easiest way to score is the free throw line, right? You get 2 shots, nobody's blocking you. It's just you in the basket. So you want to be aggressive. You want to be playing downhill. You want to get to the basket. You want to put the other team in foul trouble, and you want to score easy points at the free throw line. So that's why you want a high attempted of free throws per game.
Want to give a lot of love to our everydayers out there who are listening to the show and commenting in the sections with their thoughts regarding Duke basketball. I know Chris Carroll is a mutual favorite of ours who's always wanting to talk about the number of free throw attempts each and every season that Duke basketball has. And I think it is just such an underrated thing to look at for a basketball team in terms of offensive success, how aggressive you are, how many freebies you can take advantage of attempting. The more you attempt, the more you've got a chance to make them. And we've seen how many games come down to 1, 2, 3, 4 points. And if you can make up that difference at the free throw line, man, that turns you into a really, really special team. So we'll see if that's the case once again this season for Duke. All right, another stat, rebounding. We're always watching it. Why is that one important to watch this season?
Well, it's one of the biggest things we talked about all offseason, right? Is how is this team going to compensate for losing Derek Lively? Are they going to add somebody in the transfer portal? Are they someone going to reclass? Are they going to add another recruit? No, that didn't happen. So again, you were the best rebounding team in the country last year, or one of the best rebounding teams in the country last year, because you had 2 7-footers out there just about every time. Now you're not going to have that. You're only going to have one in Kyle Filipowski. So I'm really interested to see how well or poorly, I guess, how this team rebounds the basketball, because they were able to compensate for their offensive deficiencies last year by just getting the ball to the rim and letting Lively and Filipowski go to work for putbacks. That's not going to be the case this year. And you have questions about Ryan Young's athleticism and physicality to rebound. Christian Reeves, what is he going to be? Played well in Countdown to Craziness, but pumped the brakes. He played well in Countdown to Craziness last year too, and obviously it didn't translate to the regular season. So you don't want to put everything on the shoulders of Kyle Filipowski, but it very well might be.
So taking a look once again, another stat here are 4 team stats to watch. Assist, sharing the basketball. I talked about Proctor's ability to set up his teammates for success. Jeremy Roach, a player that we've always kind of monitored his assist totals throughout the season. I think if this Duke team wants to be successful, they utilize all of the talent, all of the shooting out there on the floor, and it doesn't come from a lot of isolation situations where it can kind of feel ball hoggy-ish, and you've got the ability to share the ball as a team. Your same thinking there when it comes to assists and why it's so important?
Absolutely. We kind of touched on it when we talked about the 4 most important players with Tyrese Proctor is you want to put the ball on a tee for your playmakers. And that's what point guards have to do. And also what we talked about in terms of the offense being different. And you want that more ball movement, and you don't want that one-on-one play. It felt like last year Duke had more one-on-one guys in like a Derek Whitehead. It felt like he was more of a one-on-one player than someone who was going to be incorporated in the offense. It feels like this is going to be different. It feels like the ball movement's going to be much better. It feels like John Shire is going to run a little bit of a different offense than you're used to seeing from Duke. And that's going to, in turn, create more flow on the court and, in turn, create more assists as well. So, yeah, look for players, obviously Proctor and Roach, to have high assist totals this season.
4 team stats to watch this season. We were talking about 3-point percentage, free throw attempts, rebounding, and assists for Duke basketball. And then to wind down today's show, 4 reasons why Locked On Blue Devils is so amazing. Number 1, it's all Duke all the time. This podcast, I love sports. I talk about them a lot. I have very many favorite teams out there. Sports is something that I'm always consuming, but it's only Duke that we talk about, Kevin, as you well know, on the show each and every day. That's a pretty big reason right there. Number 2, how about all the great guests that we have frequently on the show? Kevin, you'll be with us throughout the entire basketball season once again. It's always fun when I get someone to banter back and forth with here on Locked On Blue Devils, my friend.
Yeah, it's great. I love coming on. You do an absolutely great job with this podcast. I look forward to it every week.
Number 3, the interactions that we're able to have both on social media, also in the comment section of YouTube down below when we do mailbag segments. I think Locked On Blue Devils is great because you get to voice your thoughts and opinions on Duke, and we'll talk about it. We'll talk about what you think about the Blue Devils. And then finally, it's daily, your only daily Duke basketball show, Monday to Friday, Duke athletics covered through and through. So had to end it with a fun one. There are 4 reasons why Locked On Blue Devils is so great. 4 days away, 96 hours. The next time we talk, Kevin, we'll be talking about real Duke basketball games. And I don't know, man, that's just something that really excites me, my friend.
It's going to be awesome. Should be a great season.
Kevin, thanks for the time as always. We'll chat again soon here, okay?
Thanks, JJ.
All right, that's Kevin Connelly, the site expert for Ball Durham, joining us once again here on today's show. That's going to do it for our show here today. Thanks so much for making us a part of your day each and every day. Let us know if you're watching down below. Let me know that you're an everydayer. Want to be sure to give you a whole lot of love. That'll do it for today's program. As always, go Duke. I'll talk to you tomorrow. My name is JJ Jackson. Thank you and good day.